Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I can't believe that I'm actually saying that I lost my wife, Angela Marie Powell, on the 22nd of June. While I know this is coming for a while, there's no way to prepare for the finality of death. And right now, I feel like I'm broken. I thought I'd be okay recording this intro, but as you can hear, I'm not. I spend half of my day every day in tears, as this is just such a huge loss for me. Aunt and I spent 18 years together, and for the past 10, we worked from home together. We spent nearly every hour of every day together, and now my house is so quiet. Right now, my son Keaton's on a much-needed trip to help clear his mind in the San Juan Islands, and I'm feeling the painful reality of the loneliness that I didn't choose and what that's going to be like. I used to feel so bad for a lot of my single friends, thinking that it was so hard to always be alone, and how I was really lucky. Well, I'm that guy now, the unlucky one. It's like I'm in a midlife crisis that I didn't choose. Really, at this point, I'm just trying to figure out what my new reality is. And for those of you who are wondering how I'm coping with all this, well, I started off drinking heavily for 8 days. And that's really not me, but I needed to do that for some reason, and it helped. But I've slowed down now because I know that's not the right path. But like I said, it did help a little. And speaking of drinking, well, my guest this week is arguably the best skier on the planet. Sam Kuch is one of those old school guys who packs beer in his backpack for après almost every time he goes out in the backcountry. Not all the elite skiers of today are like that, and none of them see the mountain like Sam. I can't remember this podcast as it happened the week that Ange died. God, I can't believe I'm fucking saying the week that Ange died. I didn't think it was my best stuff, but after editing, the interview really turned out great, unlike my life right now. One thing that will be great is the celebration of life that we're going to throw for Ange on August 22nd through 24th in Seattle. Friday night will be a private dinner. Saturday night will be an insane karaoke night where everyone and their mother is invited, and I hope everyone goes absolutely huge. And then Sunday will be the celebration of life memorial. And that one folks will need to RSVP to, but I'll have some details about that in the coming weeks. One more thing before I get into the podcast this week, I work for diecutstickers.com. And I haven't been selling stickers at all because I lost the most important person in my life and I haven't been focused on work. You've all asked me how you can help me. Well, the GoFundMe is the best way. And thank you for everyone who's donated and shared. It really is going to help. But the other way that you can help is buying stickers from me. That's the second best way. And to do that, just shoot me an email at mike.powell@diecutstickers.com and I'll make sure you get my podcast discount, which will save you a lot of money on your stickers. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for telling a friend about the show, and thank you for reviewing me wherever you listen. And thank you for supporting me with messages and caring thoughts and just being there for me throughout this whole time with Ange, because the past 3 years have been the hardest of my life, and I lost the most important person in my life, and I don't know what that means to my future. I just know I'm broken now, and all the love that I've felt from you guys has really helped. So thank you for that. Finally, I want to thank my sponsors who keep this show going. They really have been incredible. I'm talking about Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Liquid Force, and Best Day Brewing. Now, let's chat with Sam Kuch. You may be the best skier on the planet these days, and the way you see things and the way you pin it, it's kind of mind-blowing. But for you, when you're not pushing it on your skis, I hear the simple pleasure for you is getting on your dirt bike with some smokes and some beers and going to explore mines. What's that all about?
Nice way to start it off. And thanks for the kind words right off the bat. I don't know if you can pin best skier in the world on one skier, but I'm really just grateful and means a lot to be among the best.
When you think of the best in your mind, because you're among the best for sure, but who are the best in your mind right now? The guys that are killing it, 3 other people other than yourselves, who do you look at as like inspiration or like, holy shit?
3 best out right now. Got to say, in the men's field, I'd say Craig Murray is right there on top. Sammy C is classic. And I don't know, after that, it's a crazy amount of people who have that title. There's like all these Freeride World Tour skiers that are literally pushing the limit further than I've ever seen it pushed on conditions that are absolutely subpar.
Sure.
So guys like Marcus Gogan and Wei Tien Ho, those guys are depending on which lens you're looking at it in, those guys could be the best skiers in the world. But yeah, there's so many names to choose, and the more I think about it, the more names I can think of. But yeah, I think like for an all-around skier, Craig Murray he's really sitting on top there.
All right. Well, he was the guy that you roomed with at Natural Selection, and I think he edged you out there. In fact, I know he edged you out there because you did not land your final run. But let's talk about these mines. I mean, if you grow up in Nelson, are there just a shit ton of abandoned mines that you can explore in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The whole area around here, like Nelson was built on mining, right? So the first settlers to come into Nelson, to the Kootenay area, they came because of silver and gold. Yeah, and that's basically what the town of Nelson was built on. So there's tons of mines around here. The mountains are basically like Swiss cheese. And I've always been pretty fascinated. I remember I used to have this mine above my house when I was growing up, just outside of Nelson. And my friends and I that's where we would go and misbehave. We'd go sneak into the mines and mess around in there. And that kind of sparked a bit of an interest. There's just like kind of this eerie history and kind of like a ghostly vibe that surrounds these mines. And then something I really like doing, like you said, is just hopping on my motorbike and going exploring and trying to find these old abandoned history, because they really were just like, as soon as they were done mining those things back like 100 years ago, they would just pick up and leave. So you can go in there and there's all this old relics, like old tobacco tins or like old drills and compressors and like all this machinery that was just left there hundreds of years ago. So it's really cool to go see. It's so fascinating to me. Have a couple beers and smokes never hurts too.
Yeah, man. What's the coolest find that you've had?
My buddy and I went to this one near Salmo. It's a town close to Nelson. And we punched back super far into the mine, like probably a couple kilometers back into these tunnels. And we came upon this big room where there's this vertical shaft that we dropped a rock down it, and we didn't hear the rock land until like 5 seconds later. So it must have been like a couple hundred feet deep, and all around like wooden room in there. And it must have been like a break room or something. And there's all these old like pornographic posters from super long time ago, all hung up on the walls, just like kind of frozen in time.
Oh, that is so cool, man. I love little time capsules like that. And so I think that's got to be a super cool thing for kids to do. There's probably mine parties and shit like that in high school. But in Nelson, other things that you guys do, is it one of those places where it's like you're mountain biking, you're skiing, and you're like jumping off huge cliffs in the summer?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Nelson is really just kind of like a recreational mecca, but all in like a really light tone. Like, I don't know, you go to towns like Squamish or Revelstoke, and I feel like the recreating there feels really hardcore. Like you're always in kind of like a race to get to the spot.
Like the type A towns compared to
yeah, type A towns. And Nelson is like super fucking laid back. So it's all like going out to the lake and jumping into the water and stuff. Like it's all just casual and fun. Yeah, everyone's just really laid back here.
I mean, you can look at it as the way that you've become a pro skier is kind of the Nelson way, where maybe some other ways it's like people are serious athletes without beers in their backpack and a bag full of drum to enjoy the end of the day. But that's never been, well, you're an athlete and you're a badass athlete, but you still live a ski bum lifestyle to some extent. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I'm just trying to hold on to that too. It's kind of ingrained in me. And yeah, I came up skiing on the whitewater freeride team, and the coaches, Dan O'Slater, Pete Valesic, Peter Then, Moss Patterson, he's a legend. Those guys were like exactly what you're saying, like a really good athletes, but are like deeply rooted in just ski bumism. And those were our coaches for on the whitewater freeride team. And basically, what they taught us is how to ski really good, how to compete in skiing, how to choose a nice line, and then just how to party really hard and get away with it.
So you learn that from your coaches there. And then like cliff jumping, I mean, just I'm trying to think about your air awareness. And I'm going to talk about your mom and gymnastics in a minute, but were you jumping off like 50, 100-foot cliffs into lakes when you were younger?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the cliff jumping around here, there's some special spots where you can kind of poke into and explore. There's all these old dams so that when they're not flowing, there's massive cliffs that you can jump off into nice deep pools. And that was kind of the grounds where I honed my cliff jumping skills. And yeah, that was the passion back in the day. I'm kind of scared of cliff jumping now. There's something's changed in me. Jumping in the water is kind of freaky.
Yeah, well, you can't see what's below you. But we're going to start taking it way back to your mom and dad. And your mom is a black belt. She's a gymnast and I think got you a trampoline really young. And is your air awareness from your mom just putting you on that trampoline as a kid?
Absolutely. People ask me this question often because people ask if I grew up with a terrain park at Whitewater or anything like that. And I can really just credit all of my air awareness is directly linked to having a trampoline growing up. And that was something, yeah, that my mom was she thought it was an important thing to have. She wasn't trying to breed me into some kind of athlete or anything or any kind of gymnast, but she just thought that having air awareness translated into so many different parts of our lives. And so yeah, so we got on trampoline super early, and then I started really taking a liking to it. Spent probably like accumulated 3 years of my life on a trampoline. Quick math. But my mom and I ended up, as a family, we all kind of went in on a nice big rectangle trampoline. And this one was like, like same kind of one that you get at a gymnastics center.
Like the big white ones?
Yeah, this one, it had a black mat, so it was a little more durable. So it could be outside, but I think it bounced for sure. Because the gymnastics center here in Nelson, pretty conservative. I did a little bit of gymnastics and tried their trampoline program, but it was just so restrictive. So I showed up there and like I had been bouncing my whole life and had all these tricks that I had in my bag, and then they got me back to the basics, doing like round offs and stuff. So I quit that pretty quick.
And then I also read somewhere else that you would learn tricks jumping into gravel pits. What's the story there? Yeah,
there's this funny little gravel pit that just kind of happened to turn into our jump session zone. Like it would snow quite a bit. This was on skis, by the way. And there's just this one really nice mound that had a nice big long run in. Probably get you jumping like 30 feet. And we build like a park style jump on that. And that was the spot where we'd learn tricks, because there wasn't a lot of great jump building spots around. And like as a bunch of kids, we just would, like the type of jumps we'd build, we'd just like find a hill and just like pile up a pile of snow and just try to get ourselves off that. We found this beauty jump building spot, and that was the spot where we all started honing our tricks. There's probably somewhere on YouTube, there's some gravel pit videos.
And then, you know, when you think about it, you got your mom who's a black belt and a gymnast. Your dad, what's his chops? Is he an athlete as well?
Yeah, my dad grew up super athletic. He was big. Both my parents are from the prairies, from Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And my dad grew up in the Winnipeg hockey scene. So he was, super talented hockey player. Did that pretty seriously until he was 19, and then switched his ideas and he moved to Europe and started just live kind of a little hippie lifestyle over in Europe. Lived there for a couple of years, grew his hair out, found skiing. That was right before he met my mom. But he still, once they moved to Nelson, they were both super into skiing. Even as being prairie people, they moved here on telemark skis. And my dad continued playing soccer and hockey, kind of like any sport you can think of. He's a speed skater. And now for work, what he does is he's a contractor, builds homes.
Okay. And with skiing with you, you get into skiing early, and I think you get on like the ski team at first. And I don't know if it's a mini race program or something like that, but then I don't think it's for you. And then you get into the free ride program. But one thing that you were known for when you were younger, which is a totally different kind of skiing, is finger skiing. What was that all about?
Yeah, I was a crafty little kid. Well, start with this. I was blessed to grow up right before smartphones. So I had a childhood smartphone and social media free. And I think something that did was just boost my imagination tenfold. And I was, of course, obsessed with skiing, and I was really into the finger sports like riding tech decks and whatnot. And I've started building these finger skis. So what I'd do is I'd take like a soft plastic, like those little DVD cases, and I'd cut up all our DVD cases in the house, bend the plastic up into like a nice ski shape, and then I'd print off graphics off the internet, and then I'd Mod Podge them onto the skis. So then it'd be like a beautiful, perfect miniature ski that's the same shape and dimensions and everything of a real ski. Take crafting foam and build boots as detailed as I possibly could. And yeah, basically I just sessioned that outside. In middle school, started selling these finger skis, and the amount of work that I'd put into it, it would take me like 2 hours to make a set of skis. And I started getting orders from all my classmates, and ended up having like 10 orders a day. I was falling behind in school, trying to keep up with all the ski orders, like making hundreds of bucks a day kind of thing. And I just didn't keep it up. It was too much for all the orders I was getting.
All right. So your first venture into pro skiing is building mini skis and selling them to classmates. But when you think about being on your skis, you're in the free ride program. You've got all these legends coaching you. And it's one of the things where everybody I talk to, and you can just see it in the way you ski, but people say that you have a different vision on the way you look at the mountain. It's not like you're a fall line skier. It's almost like you're looking at the mountain almost like as diagonally as using different lines to find different features. And it's like you're going to pop off this and trick into this and trick out of that. And it's a lot different than a lot of people look at the mountain. Did that start early? Like, did your coaches notice that there's something with this kid?
I suppose so. I mean, I was kind of middle age in the pack of the skiers on the freeride team, especially in the beginning. And so I was looking up to some of the bigger guys like Trace Cook and John Whelan. And those guys were strong and big and throwing down. And I was looking up to those guys and I was kind of feeling small. But Dano, rest in peace, Dano, he would always tell me, and he would repeat this always all the time. He'd say, but Sam, like, you got the touch. He'd always tell me I had the touch, which I had no idea what that meant. But no, that was something that was, somewhat taught. Peter Valesic, an amazing coach, really kind of intuitive guy. He had a way of looking at terrain that was similar to that. Like, you'd see a short pitch, and rather than anticipating jumping over the entire thing, he'd show us how to diagonally kind of cut over it and do the hop turn and then find the smaller area between, and to like essentially make a big line out of a tiny space. That's something that they taught us really early on the freeride team and something that's really stuck with me.
And, I was talking to your brother, too, and you kind of joined the freeride team. I think you're 13. He's probably a couple years younger when you guys joined. You're doing the IFSA tour things. And he was saying, though, that, like, you definitely did have a different vision than most people. I mean, and you can see it in the way that you pick your lines these days. But when you guys joined the IFSA, the tour, there's a theme in your career. You crushed everything from the get-go. And it's usually not that calculated. So when you think about getting on the tour, you're like 13, so you're middle of the pack, young kid. But when you do your first IFSA event, what was your first event and how did that go?
Yeah, 13. That one was, the energy that I had for that was intense. Like, I just remember it was my first real taste of competition. And I just recall entering that and feeling like the deepest pain in my gut because I was so nervous. And I was comparing myself with all the kids around me. And I was seeing, like, I was suddenly from this like grassroots freeride team where we were just skiing for fun to being thrown into this competition with all these kids that were like the whole Whistler team were decked out with sponsors. And I didn't realize you could get sponsored at that age and things like that. So I was comparing myself and I was like, fuck, like, I don't think I have a chance here. And I just remember those nerves taking me so hard. And the first contest was at Red Mountain. And that one, it went mediocre. I got my legs under me, landed my runs. I realized what the whole thing was all about. And then later that year, the competition at Whitewater, and that was on my own stomping grounds. And so I really had a handle on what I was going to ride. I remember qualifying first, which blew my mind my first year in. And then for the finals, feeling really confident and decided I'd throw a spin on this bottom air that I ended up crashing. And that was just totally destroyed me. I took the challenge. I took the leap into something a little more challenging that I could really do. And I paid for it. And it was a tough pill to swallow. It was my first taste of being competitive. And I learned what that could do with my mind and my self-perception.
Thinking about that, it sounds like your dad had a hippie lifestyle in Europe, and I'm guessing there may be a little hippie to your mom, and you're in Nelson, so there's a bunch of hippie there. And hippies usually don't seem that competitive. And you seem like a shy guy who doesn't have a self-promotional bone in your body. It's kind of just like you're doing shit and people's minds are blown and everybody wants to help you get to the next level. But being that you come from this whole hippie place and the whole competitive thing, how do you react to it? Like, after a season of competing on the IFSA, do you like the competitive angle of it all? Or are you more competing against yourself? Or how's the whole vibe?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I wouldn't say I was raised without any kind of competition insight. Like, both my parents, like my dad was a hockey player. My mom, a black belt in karate, was a big track and field racer back in the day. And she's a fairly competitive person. So like, I was definitely growing up around competition. But I think doing it for yourself, like, I would play soccer and I'd be on a team and I'd share that competitive energy with my teammates. But then doing it by myself, where it was just me and myself competing, it's just like a different recipe, I suppose. I've always approached it in trying to compete for myself and trying to ski my very best. And I think I would put a lot of pressure on myself to do that. And that would kind of just end up translating into comparing myself with the others around. Like, when I was a kid, it was a little bit harder. As I grew up into more of like an older teenager, then I was really able to kind of harness that good energy and was able to translate that into actually good skiing.
Yeah, and I think that's usually when people do the best, is when they're competitive with themselves. When they're competitive with their peers is when they don't land their 360 at the bottom of their run and they're all pissed off. And they're pissed off because they didn't do well instead of being pissed at themselves for trying that. So you don't land that run. But is that when Rome started hooking you up, your local ski shop?
Yeah, that was around the same time Rome started hooking me up. I think I did my first year of IFSA. And then the next year, my buddy Soren. He was the confident one in our friend group of boys who really wanted to be skiers. And he was like, we're going to get sponsored. And he went around to the shops with like a little resume in his hand and ended up getting a sponsorship from Rome. So I took that and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it too. And yeah, the nice people at Rome ended up getting us some free skis, which was, that changed everything for me.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start out with Liquid Force. And not only are they back supporting the podcast, but this summer, they're bringing back the most important party and event in wakeboarding. That's right, Brostock is back, and the contest features the best riders in the world. You know what's more fun than watching the pros ride? Riding with them. And you can ride with the Liquid Force pros like Daniel Grant, Claudia Pagini, and Gunther Oka at a local lake or cable park near you at their Ride with the Pro Tour. And while Liquid Force is doing all these great things to build community on the water, they're also on the forefront of product innovation. And if you're a foil frother, you're going to want to check out the new FuseLock foil system. Wake surfers are going to love the all-new Ace and Synchro offerings. And the 2025 line features fresh boards, rad graphics, and more comp vest colorways than ever before. Park to boat to foil, Liquid Force has gear for every rider type, whether it's boat, cable, foil, or surf. To find out more about the events and the products, head on over to liquidforce.com. And when you see something you like, put it in your cart, and when you check out, enter the code POWELL15, that's all caps with no spaces, and you will save 15% off your order. Liquid Force, feel the pull. Next up, it's Elan Skis. And Elan doesn't need to support this podcast in the summertime. I've said that every summer. But they do it because they understand the importance of cultivating the stories that make the snow industry what it is. But if you haven't noticed, while they've always been big in Europe, Elan has built a growing cult following here in the States. It all started with the still thriving ripstick revolution that made skiing easier and more fun for anyone that tried them. That same idea, easier and more fun, is what they delivered to their Playmaker series of twin tips. How does Elan deliver a better ski experience? Well, it's all about using the best materials known to man. And that's no joke. This is the same Elan that's known for building award-winning luxury yachts. So they never cut corners. And the fit and finish is better than anything else on the ski wall. Seriously, if you pick one up and you look at the edges and you see those seams of glue on all the different skis, look at Elan's and you're going to see a seamless pairing because they do take that additional time to pay that attention to detail, and it's awesome. And it makes everyone feel like they're making pro-level turns. And that's what skiing is all about, that feeling. So remember, before you buy your next pair of skis, demo a pair of Elan's, or just head on over to elanskis.com, pick a pair, and elevate your skiing experience. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing. And while I love the taste of a good beer, I don't always need the alcohol. I mean, my life revolves around driving my kid places, running errands, interviewing people, managing my family, and all of these things I do better when I don't have a head full of alcohol. That's where Best Day comes in. These days, if I'm not partying, I'm still having beers, and those beers are from the award-winning Best Day Brewery. And there are a lot of NA beers out there right now, but none taste as good as Best Day. I love the hazy IPA, the Kolsch that you can get on all Alaska airline flights, and everyone seems to like the Electro Lime Cerveza. I could go on and on as they have so many flavors, and I love them all. The beauty of Best Day is that they average about 60 calories and they won't get you in trouble. And pro tip, if you're partying, try to mix in a Best Day for every alcoholic beverage you have, and it will extend your night. It does it for me, and it keeps me from doing anything stupid. To have your best day or night ever, head on over to bestdaybrewing.com. If you make that order over $50, we'll also throw in free shipping. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Were you that full-on Grom kid that's like hanging out at the shop and then you've got your backyard set up and you're watching edits on New Schoolers at night? Are you fully like engulfed in the culture of skiing?
I was completely obsessed with skiing. I wasn't so much on the online side of it, but yeah, I was hanging out at the shops. I was building finger skis. Yeah, I had the backyard set up in the summertime for sure.
When you think of the skiers that really influenced you as a kid, I mean, Sammy C is still around, and I'm sure he was one of the guys that probably could have had an influence on you because he's been doing it forever. But who are the dudes that like really had an impact?
Yeah, I think the guys with the main impact were Pettit was top of the top. He was the one that when I was logging on the internet, I'd watch his MSP edit over and over again. Yeah, grew up watching MSP movies. Every season we'd go sit in the theater and check out the new movies that were coming every year. But I think my main influences were like the people who I was seeing in person and was interacting with. Like I said, Trace Cook, he was a heavy hitter on the Freeride World Tour for a while, and he's from Nelson. He was a couple years older than me, and I always look up to him. And he would give me tips, and we'd be able to actually interact. And Travis Steger, look up Travis Steger. I think it's 2011 season edit. It's still stands today as one of the best edits out.
Huh.
He was a local rider who he just gotten sponsored by Armada. He was 19 years old. Had this really bright future in skiing ahead of him. And then he passed away. He got hit by a car. And yeah, it took a major hit to the community because he really was like, he was this ball of energy that was so talented and just a really positive dude. He was the kind of guy who I'd see him in the lodge and my eyes would just turn into stars. And I was super shy to go up and approach him, but I always would. And my buddies and I would talk to him, and he was just a really supportive, great figure.
Oh, man. Well, what a loss. I'm sorry about that. So those are the guys you looked up to. And then, I think a different thing about you was what was on your feet back then. You had one of the most beautiful skis in the world on your feet at the time. How did you get hooked up with Ski Logic?
Yeah, Ski Logic. Sometimes I even forget about that time. That was a hookup through Rome. Rome still are a shop in town that they bring on the cool kind of boutique ski companies, and Ski Logic was one of the ones, and I was really drawn to them because they had all the Grateful Dead graphics that they would piece together by hand. Beautiful skis, handmade by wood. Got one set of skis from them through Rome, and then I ended up getting in touch with Daryl Haggard, who was at that time, he was a team manager. I think now he's a logger or something, but he was my point guy there, and ended up getting a few sets of skis from them and representing them to the best of my abilities when I was 15, 16. And then one day I just got an email that their factory had burned down, and that was that. The company had kind of fizzled out, and yeah, it's kind of a sad story for them to end, but yeah, they really were beautiful skis.
Yeah, man. Most boutique skis, I don't take time to go check out every single graphic, but the way that they built skis was so different, and their skis were like a piece of art that you could put on your wall when you were done skiing them. So you were on that program, and then I think the biggest thing that happens early on, or like the first contest where you realize, and everyone realizes that you are right up there with the top level of everyone, is the Revelstoke North American Championships. I think in the prelims, you hit a massive cliff there. I mean, is the idea in that one, I'm either going to make the finals or I'm going to crash, but people are going to know who I am?
Yeah, the idea in that one, I guess I was 15 there. I think I just found my flow or my style, and maybe I found my confidence there as well. Yeah, honestly, I'm going to chalk it down to puberty. I'm pretty sure I just hit puberty that year, and things just kind of clicked. I knew how to use my body fully. My depth perception changed, where what used to be a massive area that was impossible just became something that was within reach. And yeah, that competition kind of just opened my entire mind to what I could probably do on skis.
You were like on the podium there.
Yeah, I ended up with a second place in that contest. I was qualified, tied for first, sitting up there, tied for first. And yeah, didn't really realize that had happened. But then when I was up there, I was like, oh shit, I'm up here with the big guys. And that did so much for my confidence. And then all these guys like didn't really know who I was. I was basically like a kid from the hippie ski team from Nelson. And yeah, I think that, among a few other results on the freeride team, really put Whitewater on the map in the competition circuit.
Do you guys have that reputation, like the hippies from Nelson, like traveling in a cloud of smoke? Is that the reputation, or are you just saying that because I've said hippies a bunch?
There was actually that, especially when we did the 1 year on the qualifiers, when we were a little bit older and we were loosening up, partying a bit. And yeah, I think we really quickly took on that label as the hippies from Nelson.
All right. When you do really well at a big comp like that, it's mind-blowing that at 15 you can ski with the best guys. But what's even more mind-blowing is what happens. I'm going to fast forward 4 years later, because there's a shoot with Toyota. It's like Forecast Magazine, and Jeff Schmuck's organizing it, and Jeff Thomas is going to shoot it. And it's going to be like 4 super pros and an upcoming unknown guy at each shoot. And how did you become the unknown guy at Whitewater?
Yeah, that one came about because local photographer Brian Ralph, he was going to be the photographer on that shoot, the one that was coming in Nelson. And they were looking for, like you said, somebody local to kind of show them around, be featured in the video, an up-and-comer. And Ralphie hit me up, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll do that for sure. It was the last weekend of the season, and it was the season that I had I'd done the world qualifiers that season and didn't have any success, and kind of was just like, maybe skiing's not really the thing that I'm going to do. And yeah, I got this call on the final closing weekend at Whitewater, and the crew came up. I knew who Stan Rey was. I knew Mike Riddle. I knew of ABM. I knew all the athletes, and then didn't even really know the film crew or anything, and kind of just thought I was going to be the guy showing them around. So I did. I brought them to all my secret zones, everything, all my favorite hits at Whitewater, and they would session them, and then I would take a hit on it, and I was in the back of my head, I was like, okay, these guys are around. I'm just going to try to show what I got a little bit, and ended up having one of the best weekends of skiing, probably still to this day, of just stomping shit that I'd always wanted to do and feeling so full of confidence. And it all got captured on film. And yeah, the video kind of ended up being a bit of an introduction to Sam Kuch video.
I mean, I was talking to Brian Ralph, and he said that like he had shot with you a shit ton, and he had never seen you ski as close to that well as you did that day. But then from like that day on, everything clicked from there on. Was there like a moment that it all clicked, or was it like everything came together when you saw the cameras and the people and you knew the pressure was on, but that's where you do well?
I guess so. I think that still now, like I don't feel negative pressure being on camera, being on film. And maybe that was just the push that I needed, was having that positive pressure there as well. Like the crew that was there, like Stan and Mike and Anna, they were so positive. Like I never had so much positive reinforcement about my skiing. So I think that all kind of came together to build my confidence huge and kind of deliver a good performance. I really didn't anticipate I'd go in being this unknown kid and leave with the beginning of a ski career. Had I known, I probably would have fucked up way more during that weekend.
You know, I heard that the night before the shoot, that you even sent it the night before and you went big, not realizing what an important day the next day was for you.
Yeah, I didn't really know what was going to happen the next day. I thought I was just showing them around. So I went out with some friends and ended up having an hour of sleep. And was up at the lodge, laying down, falling asleep in the lodge in the morning time before meeting all these guys.
It's so funny. And so it's like the most important day of your life that you don't know about, or 2 days, because it's like a 2-day shoot. And it sounds like you got 13 shots or something like that in 2 days, and they're all hammers. And it sounded like you didn't fall the whole shoot. And so that means that like everything you do is first try. And it sounds like that happens almost every season with you. Is that fair?
I suppose so. There's been some really good shoots in the past that have, really productive. And pairing that with really good filmmakers has been, I think something that's allowed my career to flourish.
Well, I think just stomping your shit every time is like why and the size that you go is why everybody wants to film with you. I mean, I talked to the CK9 guys as well. I talked to a lot of people about you. And
yeah, I was wondering about how you knew so much.
And they said that they filmed with you for Here Goes. And the whole season when you were filming with them, you crashed 2 times, which is insane. And they were like, he was thinking about it. He's like, no, I think there was only 2 crashes. Is that a normal season for you where you really don't fall that much? Everybody says you have a cat-like ability, but like crashing is rare for you?
I guess, no, I crash a lot. If I'm really pushing, if I'm trying new things, like I'll take slams. But I put a lot of thought into what I'm about to do. I do a shit ton of visualizing, and I haven't learned officially visualizing. I think it just kind of came to me throughout my life of chucking myself in the air. But like I really take time to like focus and study and figure out what I'm going to do for the best outcome, because I find like 3/4 of the pulling off the shit is to visualize it first. And my best seasons have been the ones where I've been the most focused. And that season of Here Goes, in the pocket. I was like in the flow state for the entire season. I could envision something I wanted to do and envision it hundreds of times in my head. So then when I went and did it, I like had pretty much already done it 100 times.
You know, you say that, but then I think to another conversation I had about you where you went to Mount Baker. You were maybe 19 or 20 years old. It was like Blanc was there, McEachern was there, and you guys were going to build a huge backcountry booter at like a 90-footer. And you're not an Olympian like these guys. And that's where you learned doubles. Is that true?
Yeah, I learned a number of doubles on that trip for sure.
And is that just visualizing it, watching those dudes, and then be like, oh yeah, I got it on this huge jump that most people don't learn these tricks on?
Honestly, yeah, it was visualizing. I think that deep in the memory bank was time spent on the trampoline as a kid, and those things combined with like a little bit of blind faith came together to be able to learn those tricks. But yeah, like a trick like a double rodeo 1080 is very disorienting when you're in the air. So like in my attempts of visualizing it, it came out so much different than I expected, but was able to bring it around to the feet.
And when you say bring it around to the feet, everybody says it may look like you're going to die, but the landing gear always comes down last second like a cat. Is that more instinctual? Like you don't think about that, it just kind of happens?
Yeah, that's something that, I think it more or less just happens. There has to be some major flaw. And that's like any skier or snowboarder that spins and flips really fast has the skill of kind of knowing where they are in the air. And if it's not working, then just being able to squirm it back to at least make it to your feet. Because I think it's kind of the most important thing is if you land on your feet, then you can tumble out, but you just want to make sure that you're not landing in a funny position.
Okay, I'm going to take it back to the Powder Highway shoot now. That blew you up. How did the momentum start? Was it like days after that shoot, people start seeing clips and all of a sudden you're becoming a name in skiing?
Yeah, literally, this is the part of the supportive crew that I was with. Like Stan Rey, after the first day, he had a couple clips of me on his iPhone and put it up, made it like a hard post on Instagram and said, if you're not following this guy, you're doing something wrong. And I just remember that night, like I saw the post go up and I was like, oh, that's really nice. And then that night, I got like 2,000 followers within the course of, a couple hours. And came back the next day and I was like, what the fuck? Thanks, Stan. And then, that trip finished. Jeff Thomas was really pleased with it. And what he ended up doing is, he really just kind of ended up making the video kind of geared towards promoting me. And they put that in IF3 Festival in Montreal and I ended up winning Discovery of the Year at IF3. That's what really kind of took me off.
I mean, is that what gets you the call from Matchstick? Is like they see the segment and then they see you win an award at IF3. They probably don't even care about the award at IF3. They see the segment and then they're like, holy shit, we got to get this guy in our movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what happened. Scott Gaffney, when he was working for MSP, he is the best talent scout out there. Like he's a person who like truly analyzes skiing and truly cares about it so much. I think because he spends so much time editing and filming skiing, he is probably the most capable talent scout out there.
Who's more capable, him or Jeffy?
I don't know who's listening to this. I think they both carry the same merit in the scene. But Scott just has this, he just has this, he's a psychoanalyzer and also really, really on social media. So he's always scoping. But I just remember getting a text from him and I knew of him and I knew he was with MSP. Yeah, like butterflies in my stomach. He was just like, hey, Sam, do you have time for a call soon? And basically he called me one day and told me like no promises, but they want me in the movie for next year. I came at the same time so I'd finished that one shoot for Toyota on the Powder Highway and Stan, who was running Blank Collective at the time with Alexi Godbout, he was like, hey, you'll be in our movie for next year. So I was already feeling like shit was happening, that like my career was beginning. And then to have the Blank Collective opportunity, then with MSP stacked on top, it was crazy. I didn't really know how to handle it.
And do you have any mentors or anybody in the pro ski world that's teaching you how to handle it? Because I know you have an agent these days, but back then it was like you trying to navigate all these waters by yourself. Did anybody help you out or did you just figure it out on your own?
More or less figured it out on my own. By that point, like even before the Powder Highway trip, I had Head as a sponsor.
Are you on Head globally or are you on Head just like Canada?
Head Canada, basically getting float a pair of skis. And it was kind of like a deal that was set up through a local shop here. So I was getting skis. I had a direct line to James Heim, who of all people, he was probably the best to have in my corner because he kind of came up in a similar way and really understood the industry. He's a veteran in the industry. And so when all this was happening, when my career was kind of beginning to flourish with MSP and the Blank Collective opportunities, Heimer, who was steady looking at things from the sidelines, and he was really tight with Jeff Thomas, who was giving me major props to him. Heimer was being the team manager at Head. He was like, okay, we're going to kind of set this kid up. So he ended up, without me actually even realizing that this was an option, ended up signing me a contract for some money, giving me some travel budget. And that was, ended up being my first paying contract.
Wait, Heimer just signed a contract for you?
Yeah, basically he came rather than me coming to him for support, he came to me with an opportunity.
He's like, hey, I've got this, and this for you. Let's do it.
Yeah, that was right before the season shooting with MSP. And this is funny. This is me being super green in the whole scene, is that I got this travel budget in a contract, but I didn't know how to write an invoice. I didn't know how to take the travel budget out. So I ended up just like loading my credit card, going like deep into debt my first year filming with MSP, paying for helicopters with my own money and stuff like that. And then just not knowing how to use the travel budget and kind of just forgetting about it.
And you never got reimbursed for it that first year? You just were like, oh, well, that's just the cost of doing business and learning?
No, well, here's where Heimer was a great dude. Was he realized that, and he could have easily just been like, well, more money per head, but instead he taught me, he mentored me, he showed me basically taught me online how to write an invoice and how to get reimbursed, how to get paid.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and I'm going to start things out with outdoor research. I've been using OR products since I moved to Seattle almost 25 years ago because they outperform everything on the market. I mean, they build their products to perform in the wet and soggy cold weather of the Pacific Northwest. And when you live where we do, you need to have the best in class. While OR has always been known for building industry-leading gear for mountaineers, skiers, and snowboarders, they've gone all in on an award-winning bike line that FreeHub describes as outdoor research has once again raised the bar, offering riding gear that's not just functional but also stylish and durable. That meticulous design and thoughtful engineering of the Freewheel collection have the power to transform the mountain biking experience. So high praise, and Outdoor Research is doing a lot of things on the athlete side. While they launched with an incredible team, they had the Van Steenbergen brothers, Georgia Astley. This year, they've added Casey Brown, Carson Storch, and others. And between the athletes and the events they support, while OR might be new to the bike world, they've always lived it, and there's not many brands doing what OR is doing in the world of bike. To see the new products and what the hype is all about, head on over to OutdoorResearch.com. My final sponsor is Stanley, the iconic Northwest brand that invented the category of keeping things hot and cold over 100 years ago. You remember Stanley from your grandfather's green thermos that kept his coffee hot forever when he took you out on adventures. Well, Stanley still makes that bottle and so much more. Think tumblers, water bottles, barware, camping utensils, coolers, vacuum bottles. There really is something for everyone at Stanley. And between the unique colors and the collaborations that Stanley's doing, there really is something for everyone in the Stanley line. And they're not going to gouge you with crazy prices. Stanley is the originator, and they pride themselves on providing you and me with the best products at the best value. And that value gets even better when you shop with my code. To use it, head on over to Stanley1913.com, go shopping, and buy a ton of stuff because, like I said, this code is 30% off. It's the best deal that Stanley offers. And when you check out, enter the code capital P-O-W-E-L-L. That's Powell 2025. So no spaces in between that. Capital P-O-W-E-L-L 2025. That's where you get your code. Thank you very much for the support, Stanley. They make the best gear in the world. You've seen them everywhere. And if you don't have one, you definitely need one. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. All right, so I'm going to keep going on the sponsor game because I was going to talk about your 2019 Best Male segment from Return to Sender, but people should all watch that. They should all watch all of your segments in Matchstick and everything that you've done with Blank and stuff with CK9 because there's a lot of stuff to see. You keep putting out tons of different content. It's all jaw-dropping, but you're on Head for a while and you injure yourself pretty badly in 2022. And then you end up on K2 in 2023. Did Head drop you? What happened there?
Yeah, what ended up happening there, it was actually kind of one of the more challenging calls to make in my career so far. I had this well-built relationship with Head and James Heim, and we were working on a ski that was a collaboration between myself and Cole Richardson and Head. And we had some steam going, and I was in a good place with Head. I got injured and ended up spending that winter off. And that was the same year that my contract with Head was over. And that was definitely up for renegotiation. And Head came to me with a great offer. And at the same, like I said, we had a ski in the making. But then during that time, I have an agent, Jameson Keegan.
Great guy.
Jameson. Yeah, he's from Superheroes Management. And he, like any good agent, was kind of playing the field a little bit. And there was different opportunities that came up, like Faction had a contract for me, and so did K2. And when I learned that K2 was an option, I felt like I was securely sponsored by Head and that I would continue down that path. But I would always my imagination would wander back to what it'd be like to ride for K2, because my whole upbringing and my whole kind of vision of the ski industry was that K2 was this pinnacle brand, and especially in the free ride scene that I was so into. And they had all the legends, like all my favorite skiers over the years have always kind of gone through K2. And they've
Pettit,
always been on
Pep,
the,
Seth, Ben Chetler,
yeah,
Abma, all of them, man.
Adma, yeah, McConkey.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, unbelievable kind of legacy that they carried. So just like to be a part of that was so appealing to me, and ended up negotiating a really good deal with them. Yeah, so I ended up going with K2, and leaving Head was really challenging because I built such a good relationship with them and felt so in with the brand and didn't have a great reason to leave other than my own personal desires and where I wanted to take my career. So yeah, I kind of felt like I was splitting up with a romantic partner, you know, like I just remember talking on the phone with Heimer and he was just like kind of confused. He's like, but why are you leaving? And I just had to tell him it wasn't them, it was me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something to brand image and history and your memories being connected to a lot of things. I mean, you said earlier, Pettit was like the guy for you. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that would bring you over to K2. But yeah, I mean, Head did a lot of great things for you. The cool thing to me is that you have all these contracts lined up for you and you're coming off a huge injury. I mean, you ping pong through trees and like snapped your femur. How does that even happen to you, who's normally in control and putting your feet down?
Yeah, that day totally sucked. I'll be honest, there was that year I was feeling a little bit less on my game because it was the year following the season that I filmed Here Goes. So I was into the next season. I was feeling really confident, and by this point I was riding for Arc'teryx, and Cole Richardson and I were really close we were kind of running parallel with each other and been spending a lot of time skiing together and really feeding off each other. So we were able to, with CK9, we secured a really good budget to build a 1 or 2 year project with Arc'teryx. And this was the first time that I had like big budget behind the film that we were creating. Cole and I collaborating with CK9, we were all in the director role. I felt a lot of pressure to build this film out. And Cole and I were skiing together a lot this year. And I think a mix of conditions and pressure and I don't know, maybe just energy. We weren't really getting what we were hoping to be getting for the season. And so I was feeling kind of down on it. And I was just feeling really off my game that year and wasn't landing a lot of things. But anyway, we were up filming around Nelson, BC, cloudy day. We weren't really getting much footage. And we just built these little kickers just to mess around. And we were getting some kind of abstract shots all day, hitting this jump, bombed out the landing. I was going up for one last hit. I just thought it'd be fun to try another trick. And I remember in my head being like, okay, yeah, this is the last hit and then we'll get out of here, because it was just about 3 p.m. and it was in February, so it was going to get dark soon. I went to the top, dropped in, didn't do any visualization, just dropped in and did a rodeo 7. Threw myself a little bit to the right so I would avoid some of the bomb holes in the landing.
Okay.
And then with the axis of the trick I was doing, I ended up throwing myself even further to the right. In the air, I saw this little bush of trees, and I realized that my trajectory, that's where I was headed. So, okay, I really got to land this thing. So I came around, landed, and then with some punchy snow, I ended up getting back seat. And that was it. Like I saw this 30-inch diameter larch tree, just big and dirty right in front of me. And I knew I was going to be hitting it, and I knew I was going fast. So I was able to throw my body out of the way and then did it with my leg. And yeah, snapped my femur real clean right through.
Man, well, we could talk about the injury and how terrible it is being taken out of the backcountry and all that stuff, but we really don't need to talk about that. What I want to talk about is when most people have an injury like that, it can kind of take some of the useful exuberance out of a skier when they come back. Like you'll come back a little more reserved and aware of the consequences. But in the way that you came back from that injury, it wasn't like, oh, I have to get back on the horse. It was like, oh, I'm going to go bigger and faster than I did before, and maybe I won't crash because I'll do that. Was that like the mentality?
There definitely was part of it where I didn't want to let it slow me down. I think I broke it at a convenient time of the year where I had the whole winter to heal myself, and then I had the whole summer to recondition.
And you also got to point out that winter too, right? Like the first 2 months of the season, and like you got enough footage out that it didn't look like you weren't skiing.
Yeah, I ended up getting a couple minutes of footage. And yeah, so I had a little bit to show for the season and a lot of downtime. And yeah, I ended up coming back into the next season. Started it pretty early in early September. I went to New Zealand with Cole, and that was my first time back on snow and felt it out. My leg felt fine. I felt strong, and I kind of just ignored what the surgeon said was to take it easy and just ended up listening to my body. And yeah, what ended up happening is I was feeling pretty good. So I got back on the horse.
That injury is just fully in the past. It was like that was a one-time anomaly or that was a bad season, but it's over.
Yeah, what I chalk it down to, because I totally empathize and understand people who kind of carry demons after an injury. And I can see why, like, especially something like blowing your knee in a random scenario, why that would stick with you and why you'd feel fear in the future. But mine was like, my injury was very linear. Like, I hit a tree and I broke my leg. And what I took from it is that I really need to not hit trees anymore. And so I bring that awareness for sure. There's a heightened sense of my surroundings when I'm skiing now, but it doesn't necessarily translate into fear. I think it's just more of an awareness. But I totally see, like, with traumatic injuries, why it's challenging to get back to where you were in the first place.
All right. Well, we're going to get away from injuries and into natural selection. That's the last thing we're really going to talk about in the podcast. And I've talked to Craig about it. I talked to Mike Douglas about it. And I think both of those guys, like, the takeaway of just the craziest thing that they saw was your crash at the end where no one knew where you were coming from. It was like you just fell 80 feet out of a mountain, it seemed like. I mean, if you land that, you win the comp, right?
Yeah, maybe there's probably a good chance. I think that's what Pettit was saying when he was one of the judges.
Oh, how cool is that, though? When do you first meet Pettit?
Back in the day when I went to Camp of Champions, and he was doing a poster signing at the Oakley store at Whistler. And I was like, yeah, I'll go check it out. So I went in there and I was so shy. I went there, I saw him, shook his hand. And that was the first meeting for sure. And that was when he was in his prime. He was a celebrity in my eyes.
Dude, that guy couldn't walk anywhere in Whistler without getting stopped by like 100 people. It was like the most annoying time to be around a person.
No doubt.
And then when did you get to be friends with him? Because it's cool that he got to be a judge at natural selection, but did you get to be friendly with him over time instead of just being starstruck?
Yeah, the first time we connected was through a K2 trip. K2, the executives and a couple of the athletes and my team manager came to Nelson. They came to ride at Baldface. This was the same year that I signed with K2. So I ended up getting invited on the trip right in my backyard. So I went up to Baldface with the crew, and Sean was on that trip. And this was when he was, well, still is, but he transferred over to being a snowboarder, and we're at Baldface. So I was like, we could all wear a snowboard too. And so we just ended up spending the whole weekend snowboarding together. And yeah, that was a sweet time to connect and figure out who he was. And we ended up we're on the same team on K2. We had a few things to connect on. And then seeing him at natural selection was, I think our relationship really flourished there. We became buddies.
When you think of natural selection, what was the highlight for you of the whole thing? Is it getting the call from Mike Douglas? Is it making the final? I mean, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of highlights that you could talk about, but I mean, like, after the whole thing's said and done, like, when you look back, what do you look back on most fondly?
I think I most fondly look back on the energy shared between the athletes, because it was a really eclectic group of people that were invited, which I think is what made it so good. But to mix guys like Ty Jones and Ty Peterson and Marcus Eder and and Craig, like, having all these really unique skiers all come together who would never in the real world like go and ski 8K together, especially not this big of a group. It was just kind of surreal to be with that much talent really skiing in Alaska.
And when you're with that whole crew, do you make plans to work together in the next season? Is it like, hey, you meet all these people and they're like, hey, we should shoot together next year?
Yeah, for sure. Over the 10 or 12 days we were all together, there was a lot of scheming going on.
Nice. Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of productivity coming out of that. That was the most incredible contest to see in skiing. And, it's something that hopefully we'll see again next year. And you and Craig were right there neck and neck the whole time. The way you skied, the venue was a little bit different than everybody else. And it was really, really amazing to watch. But I have something that I call Inappropriate Questions, which I do at the end of every podcast. And I'm sorry if this podcast is a little bit disjointed, but I've had some crazy shit going on the past couple of days. So it has kind of fucked up my preparation, and I'm letting you know because I don't care. Either way.
I hear you.
I have this segment called Inappropriate Questions, and it's where I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And before I start asking you these inappropriate questions, I have a question for you about the inappropriate question asker. And you had one of what I heard was one of the best powder days ever at Menashe Powder Cats. It was like deep pow, perfect weather, and mini golf lines everywhere. But what was the story about Cole Richardson falling through a table the night before?
Oh yeah, that one, eh? I can't handle his booze. That's funny. This was the first year that Cole, his career was skyrocketing at this point. And this is his first year going on trips and getting a bunch of opportunities. And yeah, we found ourselves at that Menashe Powder Cats with Riley LeBeau, Cole, and I, just drinking like fish every night. We knew the bartender. She's a friend of mine from Nelson. So we just ended up having a bit of a party trip, drink her deep, and can't help it. But whenever I'm having drinks with Cole, I just need to rough a little bit. And I was slapping him around a little bit. And then at one point, he goes to stand up and topples over and collapses the table at the bougie Ski Cat Lodge.
All right. Well, that is the introduction to who our inappropriate question asker is. Another insanely talented skier, Cole Richardson. I'll have Cole on at some point, but Cole came up with 3 questions. He sent them to me at 11:59, so I didn't even listen to them. So you're going to hear them for the first time when I hear them for the first time. And are you ready for question number 1 from Cole?
Ready.
Here we go.
Yo, what up, Kuch, man? Hope the podcast is going well. I'm coming at you with a few questions, hopefully try and spice it up a little bit. Question number 1, I am wondering if there's any nights that have stood out to you on our MSP premiere tours that we've done. We've had a lot of crazy nights, and there's a lot of memories that come to mind for me, and I'm just wondering which stands out to you the most and which story you'd like to expand on.
The MSP movie premiere every year, I think the best one of them all, always happens to be in Crested Butte, Colorado, the hometown of MSP. And one year we were just on a bit of a tear. We were there in the same movie with the Blondes, and Cole and I, and Adma was there as per usual. Gaffney was there. We were sending it every night. And one night we all ended up, the Blondes were there, and they were just being crazy. Like they were just spitting booze everywhere. They're soaking the floor of the bar. And I just remember them having the idea to get naked and streak down the main street of Crested Butte. So we all, including Scott Gaffney, ripped our clothes off, streaked the street. Everyone saw us. Wasn't even that late in the night. That was one crazy one that comes to mind during the MSP film tour.
That is perfect. Let's jump into question number 2.
Question number 2, we had a great night one time where we came up with the term walking sidewalk to sidewalk. And I'm wondering if you could expand a little bit on what that means and where that term came about, and maybe expand on that whole weekend, because that was a special weekend for us and also a little bit of a rowdy one.
All right, there we go.
Nice. Cole's bringing out all the drinking nights. Walking sidewalk to sidewalk. That's when you can't quite find the middle of the road and you're just stumbling over foot from sidewalk to sidewalk, middle of the street. That weekend, Garrett Capel, Cole, and I, this was early season. This was like early December. We went to Golden and ended up getting hooked up some passes. We just kind of wanted to warm up and make a video. And yeah, we just had this quintessential boys trip, the 3 of us. We toured around, went to Golden, Revelstoke, Whitewater. Yeah, amazing skiing. Happened to be dumping Powell all weekend, the whole week. So we filmed a good video, and then every night ended up at the River House in Golden and to have a pretty crazy time.
Nice. All right, we're going to jump into its last question, its final inappropriate question. Here we go.
Question number 3, I'm wondering what you're going to do if Waylon grows up and he comes to you and he says, Dad, I don't want to be a skier. I want to be a hockey player. And you've got to become a rink parent. How are you going to deal with it? What you're going to say? What do you have the answers? Can't wait to see you soon. Peace, brother.
Oh, that's the hardest question I've ever received. Do I want to be a rink parent? I think if Waylon, my kid, came to me one day telling me he wants to play hockey, I would take him up to the outdoor rink and let him play there. I don't think I could live my life inside of a hockey rink, to be honest. Loved it out there to all the hockey players, but he's got to ask real nicely.
All right, so there you go. Hopefully, Waylon will want to be a skier. You don't even have to have that conversation. That's Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And we could have gone much longer and talked about all your MSP stuff, and maybe we'll do that at another date and do a part 2. But really, everybody needs to watch every video part that you've put out, because the way that you see the mountain, the way that you ski the mountain is so much different than almost anyone out there. And I highly recommend checking out Natural Selection too, because I think if you watch that contest, we're talking the 10 greatest skiers in the world, and 2 of them stand out as totally different than everybody else. And you were one of those 2, so your skiing speaks for itself. And then it sounds like you're just like such a super nice and shy guy, but everybody sees you ski and they want to help you get to the next level. And it's like, so in your career, all you've had to do is ski, and people keep lifting you up, and you're on the top of the pyramid right now, and you should enjoy it. Enjoy your family, have a great summer, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thank you to my family, loved ones, and sponsors. Y'all rock.
So that was time with Sam Kuch. And while I want to have a profound outro and wax some knowledge about Sam, I can't. My head's just not really there right now. Just know that Sam sees and skis the mountain different than almost anybody out there, and the end result is more than noticeable. It's jaw-dropping, and everyone saw that in Natural Selection, and if he landed that last hit, well, he probably would have won that event. That's the show. I want to thank you for listening and supporting me through the hardest time of my life. I mean, I watched my wife take her last breath with my son, my mom, and her best friend, Caitlin Wade. I feel like since that moment, I'm a different person, and it's not for the better. I need to do whatever I can to keep myself from being alone and start putting the pieces together. I love my wife so much, and I did whatever I could over the years to keep her comfortable and happy. Sure, there were plenty of times that I was a dick to her too, and I really regret that. I think about that more than anything right now. But I know that I did everything I could to keep her comfortable while she was sick, and I just feel so terrible that she's not here anymore. But she was in so much pain, especially the last 6 months, and she's not in that pain anymore, so there is some comfort in knowing that. But I love Ange Powell, and I'm going to miss her every single day of the rest of my life. And, you know, life's not fucking fair. And she found that out the hard way. We found that out the hard way, and it sucks. That's the podcast. I want to thank all of you for listening, all of you for supporting me throughout this whole journey and supporting me as I move forward as well. I also want to thank the incredible brands who make this podcast happen. They are Elan Skis, Stanley, Outdoor Research, Best Day Brewing, and Liquid Force. Have a great week, everyone.